Hi, I'm Toni Williams, and this is Brooklyn Savvy. I'm Toni Williams, and this is Brooklyn Savvy, and we're going to be happy. We're going to be very happy on this episode of Brooklyn Savvy because we know some of you Brooklynites might struggle with being happy, but we're going to teach you how to use humor and just how to be happy with Carol Scibelli, and you are a comedy writer.
Yes, I am.
And also the author of Poor Widow Me. Widow Me.
What is that?
Anyway, we're gonna be talking about that along with our Savvy panel, Lisa Bing, Phyllis White-Thorne, and Denise Arbisu. So talk to us about how you used humor to get through one of life's biggest tragedies, so to speak, losing a spouse.
Right. Well, my husband was 56. This was 8 years ago. He had I don't want to get into the whole thing, of course, but basically, I'm wired to be funny, as I think we all are, because we were laughing before a little bit.
Right. Or wired to laugh at what is funny.
Well, that's a little different, though, actually.
Yeah.
But I think life is easiest for people who are naturally funny. I remember, maybe I shouldn't say this, but here I was at my husband's wake. Okay,
No, it's
it
all right.
started there, and you know how you're in the front row because they say that that's the closest family. So I'm there with my daughter and my son. I'm between them. The grown kids, of course. Are they ever really grown? You know?
Right.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah,
but still. My daughter's here, my son is here. My daughter was 29 at the time, my son was 25, and my daughter was very self-conscious, and she said, "Mom, oh, everyone's looking at us, they're you know." And so I kind of took them in a huddle, and I leaned forward with them, and I said, "This is probably the only time in life that people don't want the best seats in the house."
Right?
We all laughed. We all laughed. And I realized it was kind of up to me, kind of last parent standing kind of thing, to keep that going. And I think that's what it is. And that is kind of the rule of comedy. If it's your situation, you can make fun of it, you can laugh at it. It makes other people feel much more comfortable.
So that's akin, I guess, to being able to laugh at oneself.
Absolutely.
That's what that's how I was brought up. My mother said, learn to laugh at yourself, you're going to be a heck of a lot happier.
Right.
You're going to be a happy person. So absolutely.
That's right. Take your work seriously, but not yourself.
That's a perfect way to put it, right.
Not taking life too seriously.
Right, because life is...
But sometimes there are those serious moments. You know,
but that
I
was
think
a
about the
serious moment.
pressure. I think about peer pressure, though, in those kinds of situations, you know, where you have a little chuckle and people are like, well, what are you laughing about? Your husband's dead. Why are you laughing?
you know,
But that's a judgment, right?
Right,
That
absolutely,
is. That is.
absolutely,
people
absolutely.
do judge. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Never bothered me. Here, let me ask you something. Well, you're the host. You should be asking. Yeah, but
No, please, by all means.
right.
I'm tired.
all right. Just take a little nap. I'll take. No, I had this situation happen about a week or two ago. I went to. I don't know if you all know what a shiver is, right?
Yes.
A shiver. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So there I was, and it was a friend of mine's brother who had passed away, and there were a bunch of us about maybe 15 of us in the living room. Okay. This is whether it's appropriate or not, and people are going to say something, right?
Yes.
So my friend said, everyone stand up, hold hands, I want to do a prayer. Okay, so we were all in a circle holding hands, and her cousin, the deceased cousin, big guy, had a big booming voice, he starts going, and I'm not exaggerating, just like this, la, 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 la. I mean, and then finally he said, everybody, okay? So we're all doing la, la, la. But my instinct was to say, I don't know the words. La, 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 right? But I didn't because I wanted to be appropriate.
Exactly.
So I sit down and I say to the person next to me, I told her that she cracks up and she says, good thing you didn't say it.
Right.
And I thought, was it a good thing that I didn't say it? I don't know.
Well, something, it's kind of like, grace. I was thinking about, again, during Thanksgiving, my husband says this grace, and it didn't know when to end.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And it got to the point that even my father, this is going back a couple years ago, and my father's a dignified guy, and then he opens his eyes, and he peeks out, and we all die laughing because the grace didn't know when to end. But, those kinds of things, they do happen. Could you have said it? You know what? That's the problem with comedy and your spontaneity, because sometimes what I might think is funny at that time, it's all about timing. You might not think is funny. And that's the problem.
different people have different types of sense of humor, and you can't really control everybody. But I always find that you have to be yourself. And you just go with the flow, and you
You
know.
have to be able to manage yourself. No, I mean,
exactly.
you know, because sometimes. Okay, you do that. You do that.
She's doing it again. Here she comes.
I've never met this woman before in my life.
So much of it is about being spontaneous and being who you are, though. Because we talked about prior to the show the difference between humor and joke telling. Now you saw a distinction. Why was that? Why was that?
Absolutely. And Carol and I have talked about this
Yes,
too. There's a difference between, I teach leadership and management, right? And I coach people. And humor has been found to be a leadership trait that non-leaders do not. And it often comes up, well, how is that, telling jokes? And humor is not about telling jokes because A, you may not be a good joke teller. B, the joke is typically inappropriate. But
Sometimes you get the joke in the middle.
and so that, so joke telling, if you can do it well, there's some people that do it well, and that's great.
It's called Seinfeld.
It's called Seinfeld. I have like my 3 standard jokes, which I will not tell.
Everyone
Or,
has
right.
a couple of
Yeah,
standards.
I have my standards.
Yeah.
But I don't
But
have any.
humor is what we've already said, the ability to laugh at yourself. Can you ease the tension?
Right.
Can you find the funny in the moment?
Exactly.
But
provide
to
some
that
levity?
point, like you looked at me and you said you don't have a joke. I do tend to make the joke about me. So I'm the material, or my husband. He's real good. He's real good material.
Oh, they're really good.
You are good material. Yes, but
I miss that, laughing at my husband.
yeah.
I miss that.
But even laughing at situations.
Situations,
I've been
sure.
in situations that seem dire. They're very serious, and people say that I have a sick sense of humor. But I have made fun, if you have, or maybe my attitude, and it's lightened the moment.
Yes. Yep.
And that's all. It's all. You can actually feel like a relief in the air.
Yes.
In the whole room. I think that's very appropriate in certain work situations as well.
Yeah.
When it's just so tough and you just don't know how to break that. And sometimes a laugh or just taking a break or saying something, it just lightens up the
And
whole
when things
mood.
go wrong, you talk about at work, things go wrong all the time. So if you can find the humor in that and laugh at yourself. I'm curious a little bit about the book, Poor Widow Me. I mean, because you took the whole comedy piece around losing your husband and put it into a book.
Well, yes, I know, and I appreciate you bringing it up, but it's not that funny. The book, it does have a lot of heart.
That
No,
funny.
it-
I found a couple of that
Yeah.
funny moments, which I was a real surprise.
Oh,
Something
yes.
you mentioned.
Page
I know she knows what I'm talking about.
Can I
I
do
was
that?
like, did she say that? But anyway, right.
Can I do that? Can I tell that what that was, or no? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
It's not.
right,
Okay, forget it. It doesn't matter. No, it wasn't. It was really a catharsis for me to write it because it was. I first started as a blog, and I am a comedy writer to begin with, and I always wrote about my family, and it was only natural for me to write about the death of my husband and how I was feeling, and I encourage other people to do that when they have a loss of some kind because.
But is a husband easier than a child?
I don't know. I think so.
See?
Yes.
There you go. The
Yes.
relationship.
Yes.
See, you could write about that, but a kid, we just can't.
I don't think
That's
I would.
just, we just
No,
can't.
absolutely
We just
not.
can't
There,
do it.
there is that line. You're
What
right.
is that?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Maybe a little stick in the water. No, just kidding.
Well, a kid is a kid.
Definitely she's there, but for some people, that might be the only way to let go. Is to deal. I mean, it's a
With a
very.
child, that
No,
would be-
I
oof,
understand
yeah.
that because that's a truly a deep loss. But
I'm curious
way
though
of
when you
grieving.
talk about having a loss. I mean, whether it's a friend, a spouse, whether it's a death, whether it's a loss of a job, whether it's a loss of anything else, or a traumatic or a disappointment. Can you talk a little bit about the process of writing comedy?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, comedy is, it is a process, exactly that. Years ago, this is really kind of shows the development of a joke. We were in our kitchen. My husband was alive. I had a cousin who happened to be on my kitchen table here. I was sitting here. My husband was where he should have been, at the kitchen sink doing the dishes. But we have a dishwasher. No, go ahead, do that. So he's over there. You talk about like 10 feet away. And my cousin happened to mention that he was 52 years old. I said we should throw the cards down and pick them up, something like that. 52 pickup is the name of the game. It wasn't that funny. It was sort of like, okay. My husband said, you're finally playing with a full deck. That's the keeper. We fought for years. Did I lead him into that? Because if I didn't mention cards, would he have thought of that? But that's the joke. That's the way it kind of is. It doesn't usually pop out as a full-blown thought. There's a progress to it, and that's kind of it.
It's playing off each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it shows that you are very comfortable with each other
Right.
and can poke fun at each
And
other.
that's a really good point, because when I read your book, that was a relationship started in high school. It was clear that there was a deep bond between the two of you.
Right.
You know,
That's
and
great.
it was just really clear. That was your best friend. At least that's what I read. That
so
was
glad-
your best friend.
I'm so glad you said
Oh,
that,
yeah,
because
that was clear. That was very clear.
Never in all these years, 8 years, has anyone ever said, what's wrong with you? Why would you make fun of the death? No one ever, because I think they do understand that it's coming from. I actually had someone write to me in the blog, you write as a woman who was deeply loved. I'll never forget that. That was, wow. And I said, I don't know how that happened. I guess it just happens.
Well, something that triggers, and in the story you told, humor is about listening. If you're not listening and paying attention, and you talk about in the workplace and what have you, if you're not paying attention to what's going on around you, you miss the opportunities.
You see, I don't feel it. To me, it just, you're listening, but it just kind of comes out. You know, I mean, I guess it has to do with how you do it. Meaning for me, just being funny is just basically a personality trait that was learned a little bit. It's a personality trait. You know, I'm not listening for it. It just comes out.
I'm not
It just
saying that you're
pops right
listening
out.
to be funny, but if you're not paying attention to what's going on in the room at the moment, you can't be in a position to react spontaneously. I think there's a difference between being funny and having a sense of humor. What do you think, Carol?
You're hitting me again. Again, you're doing that.
It's gonna be all black and blue.
I know. So sense of humor, but I agree,
Versus
because
being
it's
funny.
because funny comes from yourself. Sense of humor is an outward thing, and you say, "Oh, that was funny." I appreciate it. It's appreciation. I think is a sense of humor.
Is it a talent, though, to be funny?
Yeah, I think it's a
I think
talent.
it's a gift
Yeah,
and
a
a
gift,
talent,
talent.
right?
Sure,
Yeah, it is.
absolutely.
Now you were talking about how humor can mask. Let's just kind of unpack that a little bit. You know, it sometimes masks insecurities. It can mask a great deal of pain. It can mask your ability, your courage. Like, well, let me say this funny. I don't like those. I love those shoes. You know, whatever. You know, what is it? I don't know if you guys got that, but whatever.
Well,
right.
no, I wasn't really saying that. I was saying that I didn't agree with that, actually. I don't think it does that. I think people say that. People who aren't funny say that because you need some kind of a diversion to get away from intimacy or what you're saying. But if you look at, not to get back to grieving, but and a process that people go through, everyone has a device. And it doesn't necessarily mean that someone who lays in bed for a week and a half under the covers, are they going through a process of grieving? Rather than someone who goes out and kind of tries to enjoy life and tries to lighten things. I think that's, so I don't think,
Mechanisms. Everybody has a different
yeah,
way.
everybody has a
Yeah.
different way,
And I
right,
think that would be great
Yeah.
if you can move through it.
right.
Being funny or enjoying yourself, that the healing process might even happen faster.
Faster, yes.
It's the
I
same.
was wondering, there might be those who say by laughing at the situation, you're not really experiencing the full pain of it. Meaning, there are those who believe that in order to really, you have to almost throw yourself in, feel that pain, thereby processing yourself out. But I don't believe that either.
Hysterical laughing all the
No,
whole day.
no. And I don't necessarily believe that either. I think, I don't believe
what
that.
they call that?
Right.
It's interesting. Gallow humor. You've heard of it, gallow humor?
Yes.
Oh,
Gallows
the-
humor.
yeah,
because the
right.
guy who's about, it has to be about you, right? I think his name was like Andre French, and he was about to be electrocuted, and he said, no, something French. That's the whole thing. He said the headline tomorrow. I could see the headline tomorrow. French fries. And then he's dead. But that's pretty cool. Gallo, right? that he could do
it
that.
can be.
You'd think
It
he'd be
can
like,
be.
you know,
Right.
screaming and carrying on. Don't kill me.
Right. Now, in terms of, go ahead.
What about laughter and medicine? You know, I've heard,
Yeah,
you know,
they
we were
say
talking a little bit about the science of it all, and I've heard how people have laughed through such cancer. You know, that that they said, you know what, I'm at death's door,
Right.
but you know what, I'm releasing all these great, nourishing, you know, whatever, you know, that's happening in your body, and you're combating this disease. And they deal with like watching the Three Stooges, whatever it is,
Right.
and helps you deal with that process.
You know what I found when that happens? When that happens and they get better, I think it was a misdiagnosis from the beginning. Wait a minute. That was somebody else's x-ray. I'm sorry.
With the bite, you know? I mean, there's a lot of humor out there that has that bite with it, you know?
The nasty.
But, I mean, we all have been, you know, we've all laughed at that. I mean, I think who comes to mind immediately is Joan Rivers.
Yeah.
Who can really, like, sock it to people,
Right.
especially on that show she does with, you know, making fun of the way people are dressing
the
and
red
stuff.
carpet?
And we're all into that.
Yes,
We're all
exactly.
into that.
Yeah.
So, again, that's it.
Well, Joan Rivers, though, is on a very high level in terms of doing this, and it's almost an honor because what's that? Well, I think that's a different. I think it becomes a different issue. It's like the comedians that rag on the audience members, you know, to the point of they have no material except to demean and diminish the audience members. I don't see that Joan Rivers does that.
No, she doesn't do that. That's a good point.
But she's
a
alienated
different
a few
one.
people
Yeah.
with
Well,
what, you know, I'm
She's
we don't
with
think of words.
Elizabeth Taylor and
Yeah,
her
all of
weight
that.
gain.
Oh, yeah, that was good.
Anybody
come on.
doing anything is going to
yo-yo
alienate somebody.
Exactly.
But when I think of a leadership toolkit, that would not be in it. Humor with a bite, you know. You wouldn't use that, and it would be important to understand the culture that you work in to know what kinds of humor is acceptable.
Well, let's talk
Right?
about that for a second, because I don't think you have to be a genius to dissect any culture to understand certain kinds of humor is not okay. Sexual humor, racial humor, and that sort of thing.
In some cultures, you could, in a presentation, you might not tell a joke because that's just not how we do it.
Well, and again,
You see what I'm saying?
We're
We're just not doing
It's
it.
not telling a joke, but if you can present information in a humorous way, you know, if you have a really great numbers or something. I mean, I'm trying to think of a quick example. You know, if you're having to present a new product, you can say something to the effect of, you know, this is the product that's going to take us to the moon. I mean, that's humorous. It's not a joke, but it's
You know, I have to laugh at humor,
Well,
and that just doesn't do it
that's-
for me.
well, I'm going to take.
First she said she's not
Exactly.
All undercurrent, bite. You know, got a bite in my
I made it
compliment.
up on the spot.
Yeah.
Give me a minute and I'll come up with something better.
right.
Give me an example to
That's
work
cool.
with
Right.
and I'll give you something better.
Yeah.
But you know, I did a program last week with some Chinese students. Now they don't speak, they're learning English. I certainly don't speak Chinese. And I got emails saying, you know, we'd love you to come to China. You're really funny.
Really?
You're really funny. And you're this was excellent. So okay, so apparently I have some
Managed to get
element.
I'm able to be very humorous
That's
with
right,
that,
but
in that
just not with
context.
you, Tony.
I was going to really be inappropriate, but I cut. I knew when to cut, Brooklyn.
So I'm okay with that.
audience, even though they were Chinese, they didn't understand it. It came
that's
through.
right.
Were you making funny faces or no? Okay,
But
just
I mean,
checking.
again, I used humor in the presentation and in the talk and made light of the situation.
Now, humor does not necessarily equate with being happy. I'm just kind of throwing that out there,
No.
right? Or does it? Or what?
Well,
I think it.
I agree.
No, I think it can lead to. It can improve your happiness. Absolutely, because what you said, Denise.
Is happiness a choice?
I think so.
I think it is.
Yes.
I think happiness is a choice.
What do you mean?
I think that happiness is a choice. And, you know, the way I think of happiness, I think that happiness comes from, first, a joy. And that joy starts within. That's your self-awareness and acceptance of who you are.
Yes.
That's how I see joy. And then from that joy, you're able to connect with those things that make you happy.
And you know what? In one of the laws of happiness, one of it was own yourself. So that's what you're talking about. That sense of joy. Right.
But I do think, I do think, and it goes back to something you said, Denise, about people who are ill, and use laughter to help through the illness. I mean, when you laugh, it does change your whole attitude, and it brightens your mood.
I think what's the flip side of being happy and you're unhappy? So there's a difference. There's a difference between sadness and being happy and then being negative. Right, so that's where I was leading. Well, it is, but I was leading to the people who choose to be happy and not get caught up in that whole web of negativity. You know how it spins so
clearly
fast.
is a choice. It's like an outlook.
It's a choice.
Being optimistic, being positive is probably one of the first things that you'd want to do to be happy. And you do make a choice because you can be happy in some miserable circumstances because you've chosen that that's the kind of spirit that you want to have.
And if you're negative, it's difficult to laugh. I think that's what happens because you're so weighed down with that negativity that it's difficult to break through it.
Absolutely. The appreciation. So if you're that negative, you can't appreciate.
Exactly.
That's another one of those happy factors. Cultivate gratitude, a spirit of gratitude. There it is. That's another one.
To forgive people who have hurt you,
There's another one.
who have done things to you. I think that drags you
That's
down.
a real hard one to
That's
do,
a hard.
too.
It's
That's hard.
hard.
That's
It's
hard.
hard.
People think they forgive others for the other person's sake, but they actually forgive for their own sake.
Right.
And so it goes back to ourselves always. It does.
Right. I think so. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Can
agree
someone
with that.
develop a sense of humor?
I don't think so. I think you either have it or you don't.
I have to agree with you on that.
Yeah. You don't have to.
But I don't. But what do you
hurts you
say?
to agree
What do
with
you
me.
say? What are your thoughts on
I
that?
think about a young woman that I worked with recently who didn't feel she had a sense of humor, and during the course of the session was paying attention to something that happened and made an offhanded, and the whole room erupted. Right. And she didn't even realize. So I think that sometimes people have very rigid and structured ideas of what humor is, and they don't see it in themselves.
Of ourselves so much more.
Yeah. Well,
than
I
other
think
people
we
would
need to
be.
stop that.
And then there's culture around that too, you know.
What do you mean?
So, well, I think of my husband, and he's from the islands, and sometimes I just don't get his sense of humor.
Okay.
But
he still
but he gets it. Oh yeah, he gets it. He laughs a lot. And maybe I don't get it because it's like, oh, I'm the joke, and I'm like, I'm not accustomed to being a joke. I'm the joke teller, not the joke getter. Whatever that is. But whatever. But
But I think that comes back to did we talk about the biting humor and sarcasm? Yeah.
Sarcasm, I think, is a little
It can be
bit
mean.
different, right?
Yeah.
Than,
Mean humor.
that's mean. Mean
It's
spirit.
not humorous. I just don't even see it as.
But some people think
in
that it's that.
But you know
category.
what?
So you
I
talk
think
about-
it sells on certain shows.
It does.
I think I'm very optimistic, and I always see, the best in people. But when you cross that line and you push people, then something like a major disappointment, like lying, 2-3 times, or you consistently consistently doing that, then that's it. Then that's it. Right. That's it. But I mean,
Dead to me is a big
dead to me.
I don't think I've ever
Dead
said
to me.
that.
Really?
Even about dead people.
Perfect setup.
Big one. It was a big
Perfect setup. That I should have
You see,
expected.
but that's that whole forgiveness piece around the happy piece, okay?
Yes.
You see, it's like, there are times when I would like to say you're dead to me, but nobody is ever truly dead to me. Because there's maybe that point.
on.
No, there are people I still like. I might talk about you, but I still like you. No, really though. There's some that have done me in, but I still, there's always this part of me that wants to still give another chance. Yes, I'm
You
forgiving.
don't want to close that window.
No, because
yeah,
you know
I
what? Some
understand.
of the people that treated you bad can sometimes turn out being good friends. No, it's different from what you're talking about. You're talking about people that have been knifing you in the back.
I think we're shifting a little bit.
Yeah, we
away
are.
from-
Sorry,
but
Brian.
that's okay. But I think the humor piece, in terms of forgiveness, being able to see the humor. We all make mistakes, right? I mean, look, I need grace. I know that. And well, I don't know if everybody really knows that they do. And so if you can see the humor in the thing that happened between you as part of the healing, I think it's helpful.
Right.
Exactly. And I also think humor is so important in relationships because my son will tell me he will not date a girl who doesn't make him laugh. And I find that really interesting. He says, hey, if you can't make me laugh, what am I doing here? And I'm like, he needs, yes.
But
Isn't it? There you go.
You're
Looks like
funny.
me too. No, but seriously, and I thought that was mature because I said, you know, you need to
I
know.
tell you, I won't date a guy that won't make me laugh.
Really, yes.
Number one. Number one thing.
I think
I think all
like
of
that
us
here.
probably feel that way.
Yeah, but I need somebody who has a sense of humor and doesn't take himself so seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's not
because
joyful. It's
no.
funny. It's just funny.
funny.
My boyfriend's very goofy. Goofy. He repeats the same thing over and over again. And I'm telling you, it's that could. Oh, you're right. That was good. There it is.
That was good.
Yeah.
That's it. I see how you do it now. Very subtle. Very subtle.
That's I couldn't have done that if I wasn't
Unfortunately,
listening.
this is a good.
Exactly.
What did you say? I didn't hear that. I don't think.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. I was too busy laughing.
I said I could not have done that if I wasn't really listening to what she was saying.
Okay,
If I wasn't present in the moment, and I think that's
She's
where
talking
people.
about a zinger, Brooklyn.
No. But yeah. No. But it's about being present and not thinking about how do I be funny.
Right.
Absolutely. Which means
relationship.
Right, which means spontaneous. When you're not thinking about being funny and being funny, but you know, that's all the time we have for this funny episode of Brooklyn Savvy. I'm hoping, Brooklyn, that you got a lot out of our laughter today. But anyway, right, Carol, thank you so much.
this was
Please
fun. Thank
take a
you.
look at Poor Widow Me. It's a great book. It's a great read. And I think that's, again, all the time we have. We'll see you next time on Brooklyn Savvy.